his progress and what you can do with him, and then just how the overall group's looking.
Yeah, going into this fall camp, it was a big seeing the steps behind Mike and seeing Mike's steps as well, because Mike needed to take some leaps as well. But wanted to see where TJ was going to be growth-wise, and obviously our young guys. We got 3 freshmen that are on scholarship that are we feel really good about developing down the road: Charles Finley, Traylon Davis, and Victor Wickstrom. But so Mike, from a mental aspect, is taking a great step, and from leadership. I mean, that's probably the biggest difference between Mike O last year to this year. Number one is probably leadership, and second would probably be strength. He got a lot stronger this offseason, worked his tail off with Coach Mike Joseph. But from a leadership standpoint, has taken great strides. And then behind him, I'd say TJ Banks is the biggest thing with him from the jump, and we talked about this in the spring, was consistency. He's shown strides in that as well. Physicality, like, he will stick his face in there. It's just now it's a repetition game. From a mental standpoint, his preparation, all that stuff has improved. Still working on those things, but definitely improved, and it showed up in practice. Probably taking more reps than he's ever had now, which is a good thing. That's one of the things that we want to make sure is create some depth. And those 3 freshmen, they got a bright future. You know, Charles Finley, who came in at 210 last year, he's at about 222 right now. So he's put on 12 pounds. That's what you want. You want that steady gain so it lasts. And again, he's going to have to make continue to make leaps in that area. But again, he had that lower back issue in the spring and missed a lot of time, but very talented young man. Traylon Davis is he's who we thought he was when we signed him, a physical guy, road grader. He got a little fast for him this past week, but he's got a chance to be that guy that just sticks his face in there and road grades, and brings mentality to the room. You know, that's one of the best things about him. And then Victor, who is obviously new not only to the United States but new to college football. He's a guy that's got a lot of physical ability, but it's still, being away from home for the first time for a long period of time, has done a phenomenal job adjusting and picking it up at rapid pace. But he's a little bit further away probably.
Do you preach that to your younger guys? And, hey, this is an opportunity with Mike getting on the men. You're getting tons of reps. You're getting, everything you need. Is that how you approach it with them?
Yes, absolutely. Every day. Every day is an opportunity. You get what you earn. That's the thing that we told our guys, you're going to get what you earn. And you have an at-bat, so what do you earn with that at-bat on the field? And even like a young guy like Eli Archer, who walked on from Huntington, when he gets his at-bats, make them count. He's not going to get as many reps as those guys, because right now we're trying to get ready for Maryland, but it's the same deal. But yes, and all the guys have taken this as a growth opportunity. All the guys know, again, one thing that we preach in our room is ownership. Own who you are, what you are, because you can't lie to yourself. You know what I mean? Because then if you do, you're never going to grow as much as you can grow. So we're looking at this as a growth opportunity, and in our room, we're very blunt with each other when it comes to what this is on film. Is it tough? Is it not? Is that correct? Is it not? And they've done a phenomenal job with that, and they take pride in that. That's something that room rolls out there. They know that, they prepare hard, that we coach hard, we practice hard, and that's something that we take pride in.
As a coach, when you got guys that are doing this, I know in that Trickett family DNA, patience is not always. How do you deal with that and deal with the guys when they're doing this up and down each day?
I got a little bit more of my mom in me than my dad maybe, but I'll tell you, here's what it is. You got to also look at where they're at. And Mike O, when he first got here, he came off a knee, so he missed his freshman year. All right, so 2019 was really his freshman year, and then COVID hits, so no one can really lift her and everything so that next year. And then, he has a little bit of a deal this year. But again, what's the growth? One thing I talk about him getting stronger. Well, that's because he couldn't lift with his knee his true freshman year. So his path is different, same as Banks, and then same as Finley, and same as the rest of the guys. But, having essentially 2 juniors or sophomores or however they're classifying them now, and then 3 freshmen. All right, because all 3 of those guys are essentially freshmen. You know what you're going to have, but that's where I told them in the room, I'm excited about what we can be. I'm not satisfied with where we're at. I know what we can be and where we're going to be, and we're going to get there, but have an urgency to get better now to get to that spot sooner. And then if we get there, we get there. But as long as we're pushing and maximizing it, then I'm satisfied. But no, it's the meetings sometimes get fun.
Well, Laughlin missing this time, how much does that hurt? I mean, he can't help, but do you expect him to be ready once the season goes?
He's out of the boot right now, moving around. We expect him to go full speed soon. Whenever that is, that's up to the trainers. But the one thing about this is going into camp, one of our objectives was develop the guys that we have below him. So then, and I say that below him and then TJ as well, because TJ played last year some. So those three freshmen, so again, it turned out to be an opportunity for those guys and really help us try to accomplish what we were trying to seek out before anyways. Mike O, self-admittedly, is a guy that needs repetitions too. He's a guy that played wide receiver in high school and then transitioned and made great strides last season and had a phenomenal spring as well. Looking for him to do the same thing, but again, when you miss out on those reps, all you can do is from a mental standpoint, and he's been great by being right there, making the calls. When the guys come off the field, they go right. I empower him. They go right to him, so he coaches them up. If there's something I say, did you see this? And he'll be like, got it. I say, hey, did you see that? And if he didn't, I'll say, I'll correct. I'll make sure he understands it. Then he gets those guys aside and he coaches them. So it allows growth in the leadership aspect as well. So that's going to pay off dividends too, where maybe we might not have as much as he's out there repping. So we look at it as all right, so here's where we're at. Let's make the most of what we got.
Travis, can you take me through the process with Sam coming over from outside to inside and kind of building his confidence back up while he learns a new position and kind of remembers who he had been before, and just by looking at him now, he seems like he's in a much better place too.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I think Sam did is Sam, whenever you put the work in, it shows. And his work ethic is one of the best on the team. And when you got a guy that comes in and then takes ownership of like where he was and who he was and knew what he had to work on, that growth shows up. And Coach Parker's done a phenomenal job as far as in creating that environment for him to be able to do that. He has tools to be able to play inside and outside, and that's what makes it flexible too, because now you have a depth plug whenever you need it. But he gives you that dynamic. Again, when you got guys like Winston Wright and Sam James in there in the slot that can go on guys typically who cover in the slot can't go as fast as guys on the outside, that helps us. That's a positive for us. So he's actually worked at it. He's one of the biggest steps I'll say for Sam too. And again, Coach Parker has done a great job of facilitating this. Is his toughness has definitely gone up. His willingness to stick his face in there, and I think that's got a lot to do with strength. He works his tail off down there with Mike Joseph, and his confidence level to be able to go in there and mix it up with those linebackers and bandits and anybody that drops from the boundary, and he's not scared, and that's a growth thing. And so I couldn't be happier for him and more proud of him.
Was he in a bad spot before? He's in a better spot now. Do you just have to take a step to the side and remember 2019 for him? I don't want to put a false spin.
No, absolutely. No, I think 2019 it's just like anything. Like when you have success as a freshman, all right, you got to really look at the truth. Like, why did we have success? Did we see what, he's stronger now than what he was back then. So when he gets press corner now or press safety now compared to what he was then, he's got a lot more tools and a lot more stuff to work with, so to speak. You follow me? So he's a guy that, I don't want to say he's in a bad spot. He's a guy that took ownership of, all right, what he needed to work on, really looked at himself in the mirror and then applied it, took a plan that was put in place by the staff, by the strength staff, and has applied it and worked himself into that position where he can go out there and play with confidence. And so I don't ever think he was in a bad spot, but I think he was in a spot where now he is much more comfortable because he knows exactly who he is and how he needs to be and how he needs to prepare.
One of the focus for tight ends has been on throwing them the ball, but the other part of them, getting them working with the tackles, the running game, where is the progress in that? You feel like maybe that's improved as much as some of the other areas you've been talking about?
No question. Dante mentioned earlier about how like each unit, and I think our physicality overall as an offense has improved. I thought it improved last year, but it definitely has improved. And the communication, and really like self-evaluating. All right, again, self-evaluation is one of the hardest things you can do. and being truthful and honest with yourself. Like, okay, what do I need to improve on? What do we need to improve on by position as an offense, in a run game, in a pass game, protection-wise, whatever it is. And then, okay, let's talk and have these conversations, and where can we be more efficient? How can we structure it, put a plan in place? And in all these aspects, whether it's been, communication with the run game, whether it was physicality, whether it was catching the ball, whatever it was on offense, pocket movement for the quarterback, there's been high emphasis from day one of January, right after the season, of, all right, here's where we're at. Let's put this year-long plan in place. And then each phase of the year had an emphasis. And now we're here to this point, and communication with us and the offensive line has been one of those things. And then, but also, in the protection game and in the routes. And so, and the same thing, every skill player has a ball drill circuit that they have to do, whether it's receivers, tight ends, or even running backs. So, that those things have been put in place, and we are seeing dividends pay off. I think, like when Dante said that, you feel good about it. Now, obviously, it's untested, and we do feel good about what we see every day, but we haven't seen just a base defense that lines up and stays still, and they're here. Like, we were watching some film of some teams in some other conferences, and our guys like, dang, coach, that's easy. Like, well, I mean, it's easy to see where we got stuff lined over, but that also helps us too, because we see probably the worst case scenario, worst environment imaginable, like on Armageddon. That's what we see sometimes every day, but it helps us. Iron sharpens iron.
I'm curious, I asked Dante, I'll ask you, what's been the challenge facing that defense when you got to block them and move the ball down the field?
Well, it's just, you don't go into a game plan. You have, all right, this is what we expect. We know from this defense coordinator's identity based on film, based on tendencies. We have 10,000 reports, all those kind of things. So you know what you could possibly see. And then you have rules to bail you out if for some reason something comes out to that. Well, with our guys, we see everything you can possibly see. We see all different fronts, every different snap, guys coming from all over. And essentially, like, wherever you ID, it could be a D lineman or a linebacker or a safety or even a corner. So, from a communication standpoint, it stresses you. And so that's where that growth has really helped us. But also, like when we go past pro and all of a sudden we're on Dante Steele's by formation, tight end's got to block him. I mean, that's, hey, cowboy up, let's go. You know what I mean? So that's one thing. But it's been good. Because there's times where if we block Dante, I'll let him know it. Then he comes back, and it's harder on my guy the next go around. But and then even routes, same deal. So it's been it is an iron sharpens iron. They are a very complex defense. It blows my mind every day because I went against it when I was at my last job in the conference, and it was hard to get an idea. Now I kind of know it. It's really neat about how it kind of makes it to where those kids can play fast and know what to do, but it's so hard for us on offense. That's what's really neat.
You guys are bringing in a host of international players over the last couple of years. Like you said, you're working with Victor. Those guys obviously have their own challenges assimilating, in the United States. But specifically to football, is there an additional challenge bringing them into, football in the United States as opposed to overseas?
Sometimes I think, and I say this, like a lot of these guys come from different areas. What we're realizing over there have different levels of football, and it's not ever going to be the same. If you recruit a kid from the United States that comes from a small private school league, you always take consideration, all right, level of competition is not that great. Okay, so how is he going to fare? And that's your job as a coach to project that. And with the international market, with West Virginia as a state, historically, we all know the recruiting grounds. Like you get very few players out of the state. It's at a great year, it's 3 Power 5 players a state. Great year, right? And you got signed 25. So the surrounding areas, and there's a lot of people recruiting the players around you, right? So, this new market is really allowing you to get that size and speed guy that's hard to find now. He's maybe a little bit more projection. Maybe he's going to have to cook in the oven a little bit longer, so to speak, as far as like training and getting him ready. But you get some things that maybe you weren't able to get in a different area. And really him coming into camp a couple of years ago, ran like 4'6", was like 6'4" at that point in time, 220. Now he's 6'4.5", and he's 250. And he's strong as all get out, can still catch. It's just now all right, speed of the game. because he has not seen it. He was the biggest dude on the field. They had him at running back, receiver, all that stuff. Now he's got to block the guys he's going against and stick in his face, and it's a new experience. But he's going to be just fine because he's got the mentality. That's what you got to figure out is what's the football aptitude, and then also like what's the sense of toughness there, the ability to learn and the willingness to learn. How bad does he want it? And a guy like Eddie up on the defensive line, he came in from Finland and blew us all away this past spring, and it's just physical. He was former military and just really you're like, this guy's a football player. So there, like I said, it's this very interesting. It's new, uncharted waters for all of us. But Victor's going to be a very good player, and he's a guy that is. It's taking him a little bit to adjust right now, but he asks question after question after question, and it's a good thing. But sometimes I'm like, Victor, I'm going to get to the question, your answer. Just wait. You know what I mean? So, but it's. He's very direct. I know it's Swedish. He's very. How's your arm feeling? It's sore, coach. Hard to if we get full extension. I'm like, all right, good. Appreciate it.
You mentioned West Virginia as an area for producing individual players. Seems like over the last 10 years or so, it's really gone up. I mean, why is that, and am I right about that?
You are absolutely right. I was actually talking to somebody about that in the profession, and we're all like, what the heck is going on here? Because it wasn't that way back when I was in high school here that much. We had a couple guys. But you know what? I don't know if it hasn't always been that way. I think it's more known now. I mean, because you look back, even when I was in high school and before, there's some guys, but they've just left, and they went different places. And some of the lower guys stayed, maybe. Some of the upper guys stayed. But, when we go back to like Quincy Wilson, he stayed, But it is interesting because it just puts a premium. Like when we first got here, Coach Brown's like, if there's a kid in the state that we feel can help us win a Big 12 championship, we have to get him. Like that's the priority, man. Like we have to get him if he's a guy that we feel like he's this. And so we identify those guys, right, wrong, or indifferent. We identify the ones that we want to go get, and then we attack. And it's critical because those guys end up being, like they want to be here. Majority of them, you know what I mean, and they want to put on for their state and put on for their families, and there is a pride here, I mean, I moved a lot as a coach's kid, but when you come here, it's just different. Went to school here, like I told the guys, it's just different. There's a little bit more of a us against the world mentality, and there's just a little bit more. I don't know. When you hear Country Roads, it's just different. So at the end of the day, like I agree with you. There's been an uptick in talent. I think elite Power 5 talent. What that attributes to, I don't have an answer. But, you have a guy like Zach Frazier who didn't have a whole bunch of offers, comes in, starts as a true freshman, and now he's where he's at now. And then you're like, wow. You've got guys like Wyatt Milam, Doug Nestor, I mean, Sean Martin. And listen, I'm going to forget somebody, but the list goes on. So, KJ. So, if there's talent in the state that we feel like we can win with, Coach IDs it, and he's going to say we're going to do everything that we can to make sure we do not get outworked on that kid. So and I think you see a little bit reach the benefits. I mean, there's kids before we got here as a staff, and that other schools recruited, and there's a reason why.